Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Alicia, and today I want to talk about this book, Heartbones by Colleen Hoover, and this book has got to be one of my favorite of all time. I can't stop talking about this book because it's it's close to tying to my favorite book of all time, if not a second. I don't know, it's hard to judge. My favorite book of all time before this was It Ends With Us, also by Colleen Hoover, but now my heart is torn because this was so good and I love it so much, and I could reread it over and over again, and I could, if they made it a movie or a TV series, like I would be addicted to watching it. It was a good book. But before we get into the book review, I just want to say, first of all, it's Nurse Appreciation Week and it's Nurses Week. Being a nurse, I just want to say happy Nurses Week to all the nurses out there that might be book readers also. I have to say that I'm now a pediatric nurse, and I have been for a while, and I wanted to be a pediatric nurse when I was in nursing school. It's, the day you introduce yourself, you stand up and you say, what kind of nurse do you want to be? I said pediatric nurse, and I shied away from it for a while, and then now that I have the opportunity to do it, it was scary to kind of jump into it, and I was afraid for a lot of reasons about, emotional things, and at the end of the day, I have to say it's kind of the most amazing thing I've ever done with my life. Being a pediatric nurse, it's rewarding. I love every unit I get to work on. I love there's so many kids that are amazing, and that it's very rewarding, and I can be very emotional some days, but most of all, it's so rewarding. And I just want to say thank you to all the pediatric nurses out there. That also ones that helped, train me, spent time with me, but also ones that I don't know, any nurses out there. Thank you for what you do, because I couldn't imagine doing psych nursing, and there's a lot of jobs like operating room nursing. There's so many nursing jobs out there that it's just amazing what they do and how much time they put into being their very best selves as a nurse. That's wonderful. Also, it's also Teacher Appreciation Week. I'm like, how is that possible that they're both the same week? I understand Nurses Week is this week because of Florence Nightingale's birthday and things, but it's also Teacher Appreciation Week, so I just want to say also happy Teacher Appreciation Week. I feel also very close to the teaching field because I also have a degree in teaching, went to school and graduated with a degree in teaching. My sister is a teacher, and that aside, even if you don't have any background in teaching yourself, who doesn't have a favorite teacher in their past, or have my kids, I know that I have favorite teachers of theirs that I'm just appreciative of everything that they do, and the ones that, sometimes you find a teacher you wish you could just keep forever and that they wish they could keep forever. I know my favorite teacher she was my 5th grade science teacher. So I don't want to say her name on here for certain reasons, but she was the best teacher of all time. I remember in science, she had red hair too, and so she always used to play with my hair, and I used to keep my hair up in a ponytail all the time, and then I'd wear it down, and she'd always come by and play with my hair any day I wore it down. And anytime I did any work at home, so I really liked science, and so all of the science worksheets we had to do, I always drew out diagrams, and I was really detailed in my explanations. And so she would take my homework and she photocopied it onto back in the day when I was in school, we had a projector where they would lay that clear laminate sheet down on the projector, and it would be projected onto the screen, and she would use my homework as an example piece of work for her other classes. And so I always felt so special that she did that. But even if she never did that, she was still my favorite teacher of all time, just because of the way that she was with everybody. She was so kind and caring, and she always had the coolest things in her classroom, and that was my favorite time ever, to be in her class during 5th grade. That was the best. I bet everybody out there has a favorite teacher memory that you have, of course, and teachers are they're genuine people. They don't obviously get paid enough or get appreciated enough for what they do, and they have a lot on their shoulders, being able to hold the entirety of a mind in your hands. And it's not just about teaching the child, that this child is going through important growth stages in school and learning important lessons. That's not just about school and the subject you're teaching, but about emotional lessons as they go to school every day. It's never just one side of something that you're teaching, but these teachers have a big job. So happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Appreciate a teacher, thank a teacher, thank a nurse. Yes, I don't know if you guys are related or know someone that's a teacher or a nurse, but I'm sure that you know somebody that's a teacher or a nurse. And so just appreciate them today for this week and have a wonderful week. So I don't know if you guys can see, I got my nurse sweater on, one of my favorite nurse sweaters. It says pediatric nurse. It's got cheetah and colors and it's bright. And I really enjoy that we could wear bright, colorful things at my job. And I feel like it's good for the kids to see, people in bright, happy colors. It makes that person seem brighter. And I like to carry that over into my daily life. I wear a lot of colorful things. But I also, good segue, want to talk about the colors on the cover of this book. Oh my gosh. I like the covers of all the Colleen Hoover books. I think all of her books, they're pretty. So they say don't judge a book by its cover, but I mean, I'm judging and I like it. And then I open, obviously, the story and I like it. Look at like how many tabs I have here. Like maybe at the end of the video I might talk about a few of my favorite things, a few of my tabs here, because I loved this book. I like the colors, I like the style, and if I didn't already know who Colleen Hoover was and I was walking through a bookstore, I would be attracted to pick up this book, and just at least once you read the back of it too, you're enticed and you're drawn in. And so colors, I mean, it's never a bad thing to have a good cover on the outside and good material on the inside. So let's get into it. Heartbones. It's, like I said, novel by Colleen Hoover. It says #1 New York Times bestselling author of It Ends With Us, but it itself is not a #1 New York Times bestseller. I don't understand why. Like, why not? Who decides this? Because it should be. I like the quote that they have on the back. It says, damaged people recognize other damaged people. It's like a club you don't want a membership to. It's so true. Damaged people can recognize damage in other people. They can recognize trauma in someone else. You can feel a connection with someone without saying anything and have a really strong bond to somebody without ever knowing anything about that person. So true. And this book, I mean, it talks about a connection, but then when you get to know someone, it's crazy the things that you guys can have in common. Anyways, main character is named Bea. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. That's so like a tropical, cool southern name. I like the name. Colleen Hoover, I did see in an interview once that she said she gets most of her names from street signs that she is driven by at the time that she's writing the books that she's writing. I'm like, Bea, where did you come up with that name? Is that also a street sign? I'm just curious. Where is it at? Mississippi, southern, somewhere? Like, it's like, I don't know, tropical shoreline, coastline kind of name. I like it. Bea. So Bea and Samson are the two main people in this story, and Bea is someone who, I don't give away way too many things or spoilers. It says here, she's had a life of poverty and neglect. Okay, so I'm not going to tell the main issue at the beginning of the story. It's a big spoiler and it's a big shock to me when I read it. I'm just going to say, if you've read her book Verity, in Verity, there's this scene at the beginning, and you guys know that it's like an attention grabber. That's what she intended when she did it. And I'm like, okay, oh my God, Colleen, I'm reading it, I'm doing it. You don't have to do that. You don't have to go that far. It's a little extreme, but then it's true. Like, it's an attention grabber, and I fell for it. And it happens in this book. There's a big attention grabber in the beginning, and I'm just like in shock and sad, and I have all my emotions like out there. Like on the one hand, I'm happy for her, and I'm mad for her, and I'm sad for her, and there's just, you're immediately connected to Bea and what she's going through. So there's that. But Bea, going through this poverty, neglect all her life, having this giant thing happen to her at the beginning of the book, her whole world was kind of tossed upside down. And she's from Kentucky. She has a full ride scholarship to Penn State. Says it on the back. I could say that. But before she goes there, she has to find out like what she's going to do in the meantime, because she's kind of turned upside down, no place to live, nowhere to go. And she ends up going to live with her dad, her biological father, who she feels she doesn't have a relationship with whatsoever, hasn't seen him in years, and she has to travel to Texas to live with him. And I could not imagine having to like reach out to someone who you already don't respect, don't care about, feel like they don't care about you, and then you have to go live with that person, you know, when you're down on your luck, and you don't even want to tell them why or tell them that you're as desperate as you are. And that's what she does. She goes and lives with her dad. And while she's in Texas on the peninsula, just kind of waiting out the summer to go to Penn State, she meets Samson. So she meets Samson, and Samson is this rich, brooding guy who lives next door to her father. And they have like the most interesting meet cute, and I don't want to give it away, but I really liked it and I can totally relate to it. Um, just parts of it, and I'll talk about it at the end of the video when I'm giving away spoilers. But the meet cute was amazing, and the fact that he's like this rich person next door and she feels like he is kind of stuck up or snarky, she can't figure him out. He gives a lot of mixed signals, and it's kind of leaving her very confused. Like one minute she's drawn to him and the next minute she cannot stand him and wants to run away. And just, it's, I don't know, it's, you get drawn in because then you're also curious, like what is happening. We don't understand him, but they do end up having an immediate connection that's too intense for them to deny. But they know that they were going to go to the opposite ends of the country in August when she goes to Penn State with her scholarship. So they decide to stay in the shallow end of the summer fling. And it says the hearts get drug out to sea, and they do. There's also like this big event that happens in the middle. When she and Samson are out on a date, there's something really big that happens, and she doesn't really know what to do. She's torn between doing the right thing and doing what she thinks is right at the time, and she has to kind of trust her instincts. And you get to see the story completely play out, obviously, but then it's very scandalous. And like once you think you have everything figured out about Samson, then all of a sudden you get turned upside down and you get the true story, and then you kind of feel like you misjudged him and misjudged the entire situation the whole time. And you're like, I don't understand. Why couldn't you have just said it in the beginning and just been honest and upfront about it in the beginning? I don't understand, because then things could have been different, but then they played out so perfectly. Like, should they have been different? Like, maybe they wouldn't have had the connection that they had in the beginning if things were different, if he was completely upfront, because you know you can scare people away if you have all the answers up front. So yeah, I really liked, you know, the whole mystery of trying to figure out the situation, and then when in the end when you get the answers that you're like holding on to the whole book for. I gotta say, I breezed through this book in like a day and a half, just by doing other things. I couldn't put it down, and then when you put it down you're like, I wanted to read more. This should be a TV series. It should be, I don't know, a movie. It would be a great movie. I think some of her books are even better than, they would be better than Nicholas Sparks movies. Honestly, they are. And I cannot wait until It Ends With Us comes out as a movie and we all get to sit down and watch it and be like, oh my God, it was as amazing as I thought it would be. Probably won't be as good as the book because they never are, but I know that they're going to be better than Nicholas Sparks movies. And that's saying a lot because I love a lot of Nicholas Sparks movies. I love a lot of his books, but if she makes a movie, oh my gosh, when they make It Ends With Us, I cannot wait. I cannot wait for them to make this one. And I honestly think they totally misjudged this book. This should have been a #1 New York Times bestseller. Enough said. Okay, so that's the end of my book review without spoilers. And now I want to go into the part of the review that has spoilers, just so I can talk about like the parts of the book I need to get off my chest and talk about all these little tabs I made. So first of all, I just want to start at the beginning. The very first like shocking event at the beginning of the book, when Bea finds that her mother is like had OD'd and she's gone. That is so sad, and it really drew me in because I feel like if you don't know someone that is either on drugs or has a family member struggling with the situation, or yourself has struggled with the situation, that's, I mean, I'm just saying, it would be very hard to find someone in this world that cannot relate to that. And I really liked that we get to see what happens to Bea. Like, it's not just, oh, you're this sad sob story. You didn't just be this victim your whole life. Bea is strong, and she's been independent for so long. And Bea, her character, going through what she went through, I like that she didn't just let life beat her and get her down. She ended up taking it, and she still got a full ride scholarship to Penn State, and she still stuck with volleyball, and she like invested her entire self into, volleyball sports just because she had to cling to something, and it made her stronger for it and made her more focused and responsible. But in the end, she didn't accept defeat and accept the situation for what it was. And I really enjoyed, because a lot of times in life, especially working at a hospital, you don't always get to see the ending of these stories, some of them that are terrible. And I feel like this is kind of like you get to hope for the happy ending and see it play out. I like that. So, yeah, that's the first part. Second part is like, obviously, I could definitely relate to seeing all these little, like her landlord trying to take advantage of her, and while she has to be kind to him to kind of get, the phone call to who she needs it to, and then have to deal with these smug people anyways. That's so frustrating, but in life, that's what happens. You have to deal with those characters and move on about your day, and she does it wonderfully. So thank you, Colleen Hoover, for thinking of all the little things that she puts in her books that, these little characters that are on the side in a book that you don't think they really matter. They don't have a big role, but they make an impact on the story and show the character like what she has to go through. But the biggest part of her having to call her father, who's not in her life, and she's frustrated, like, that is so insane, because there's so many people out in the world that don't have dads, and that even if they do have a father that they know of, that's just not in the picture, not fatherly. So that's just, you'd have to put your pride aside and call that person because you have nowhere else to go. Like, that is so traumatizing. That's like trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. She never even got to deal with and heal from her mother passing away, and that trauma. It's like, for her whole life is just a list of traumatic events that she's never even gotten a chance to heal from, and at this point she's just numb. But even being numb, I couldn't imagine like having to call this person, this stranger in Texas, and ask to come stay with him. So that is just, I feel like Colleen Hoover, she does a great job of putting in these relatable stories that so many people can relate to, but these stories that aren't often told. So I like that. But yes, one of my favorite parts in the whole book is obviously the meet cute between her and Samson. When Samson is on the boat, and like when she's eating the bread because she's starving, and it's bread that's been sitting on the boat that no one has claimed, obviously, maybe they're feeding birds with it. And like the bird bread is what she's eating as a meal, and that's just her life. And then that's when Samson obviously sees her, spots her. Like, Samson tends to see her in all her worst moments, and it's so embarrassing. I have like secondhand embarrassment for her, but I've had that happen like in my life, where the first time you meet somebody was like in one of your worst moments, and like it's so embarrassing. But also they get to see the real you, the you that you hide from other people. They get to see you for who you are and see that some of your struggles. So it's like those are the people that tend to get to know you the best. So obviously very clever on Colleen Hoover's part. But oh gosh, this part, my very first tab here, this part, page 176, when she wakes up on the beach and she sees Samson is laying in the beach chair next to her, and he's laying down with sunglasses on, and she thinks that he's sleeping, and she's just like staring at him sleeping. Like, you ever cared about somebody so much that you just watched them, like you couldn't take your eyes off them? And she's doing that, but then he talks and he says that he's awake. He's like, I'm awake. Like, oh gosh, where is it? He says, you realize my eyes are open, right? I'm like, secondhand embarrassment dying for her. I can't even. I had to I was like, oh, I made noises I wasn't supposed to make. A lot of the times I take the book to like the park or like outside somewhere, and I'm reading in the sun, just like with around nature around me, and like I gasp, and I'm like, oh God, I hope no one around me heard that. Because you couldn't keep to yourself. I couldn't imagine that. It was so funny. Okay, I had to change positions because like I feel like my feet are falling asleep. I want to talk about on page 180. Oh gosh, where it talks about they're going on this date, and her sister Sarah is giving her a makeover, and then like this is supposed to be like an epic scene. Anybody that's seen, Pretty Woman or She's All That, like the makeover scene is like the most epic scene, and she's coming down the stairs and she trips. Hey, I'm back. sorry, I had to answer a message. Anyways, so yeah, this part where she gets this makeover and then they just kind of flipped page 181, a new chapter, and like they just breeze over it. She never even talks about it. They just start talking about how she's eating shrimp and on the date with Marcos, and so we don't get to know, like, I'm a details person. I want to know every detail, like paint a picture for me, because I'm like, I need to visualize what these people look like. I need to have like names and faces, what color are their eyes and their hair, like what are they wearing, like make it something I can visualize, because bring it to life. I feel like when an author doesn't do that, it's easier for like, filmmakers to kind of just pluck in anybody they want to play the character. But then for me, the reader, like, I want to know the details. I want to paint the picture. I want to see the makeover before and after. What did they do? I don't know. Anyways, and I also, like, more than anything, I'm like, give me Samson's reaction to her makeover. Let me see how he felt about it. Anyways, I'm like, that was just literally the only frustrating thing that, like, I could say negative thing about this entire book was that. I'm like, why'd you just breeze over it? Anyways, yes. So yeah, at the restaurant, when they find out he's Sean Samson, like, he's this whole other person, she gets this little glimpse that obviously he isn't telling her the full story. He's not who he says he is, because things just aren't adding up, and it's a red flag. I'm like, it's not a red flag where you should like walk away, I guess, but I mean, them keeping it casual, she's trying not to pry too much, but then I feel like she's entitled to those answers. Like, and he tells her this whole thing, well, the last day before you leave, I'm going to tell you all the things you want to know the day before you leave. Just keep it as like a list of questions. Gosh. But then, I love it so much whenever, the scene when Samson is jealous of Bo, and like, Bo is not even someone she's even remotely interested in. He's cocky, he's rude, has like no depth to him as a person. Everything with him is superficial, and she just can't connect with him, let alone be attracted to him. And Bo comes over, and even though she has no interest in him whatsoever, Samson sees it, gets upset, and he comes over and gets super jealous of Bo. Like, I love that moment, because obviously she not knowing about her place in his life, and then his actions are showing her place in his life. Obviously you're important to him because he's acting like you're important to him, and with men it's like always actions are more important than their words. But I mean, also on this page, like, not only did Samson get slapped, he got slapped once, and then he got punched twice in the same day, one by Bo and one by her dad. Like, punched twice and slapped, and still he's standing up for this person. Like, obviously he cares about you. But I was like, gosh, poor Samson. Like, anyways, this other thing, Daria, like, I feel like that was just a neat little detail. Like, do they really call the sea Daria? Is that a true thing? I'm curious. Need to like look into this more. But the fact that she was jealous of Daria, thinking it was his ex-girlfriend, and it's actually the sea he's talking about, and then saying how Daria broke his heart, and then at the end of the book, when we understand why Daria broke his heart, because obviously Daria, I don't know if you saw that was lightning. It's like storming here. Anyways, but yeah, that really broke my heart when she found out that Rake, where he wanted to tell her, obviously when it's something that's that important to you, you have to like tell someone in some way. So he told her in a way where he felt safe to tell her without her being, too emotional about it. But obviously Rake got brought up, and we get a little snippet of who Rake is in the beginning. And then when the body came up, and she has to just blindly trust him. He says, just trust me. And like, she wants to like do the right thing, go to the police, and instead she trusts him. And like, she has that feeling, that connection with him, where she's like, I trust him. He is a good person. He wouldn't be lying to me. And she left him alone to deal with it. And it was his father in the end. And so, there's another lightning going on. Anyways, I like that whole backstory where like we feel like there's all these other elements to Samson of who he is as a person. Like, and like, I wish we could have met his dad, Break. And also, I feel like there's a lot of people out there like that are teenagers that, I even knew and grew up with, that are avoiding the system and avoiding like going to these terrible homes, like foster homes and to group homes. And so he'd rather be on his own on the beach than be in a foster home being abused by people and taken advantage of. I can completely relate. And also, his dad was never found. he never found his dad, so it makes complete sense why he would stay, nearby and return to this place, hoping to be reunited with his dad and at some point. So there's just a lot of different elements going on. It's very clever, and it's also very sad and very relatable for a lot of people. So, oh yeah, the arson charge. There's all these other things he's had to go through. That's just like, I don't know. There's a lot of different things that, like, okay, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. Like Samson's character, like, she finds out these things that are terrible that he's done, but then when you hear his side of it, it's like, okay, it makes sense. He did what he had to do. I mean, would anybody else do anything different? Okay, this quote right here was my favorite in the entire book. It was just her thinking to herself while she was talking to Sarah, because Sarah and everybody else is saying that not all guys are bad, but Samson sounds shady, like you need to stay away from him. And in Bea's mind, she said this: I'd much rather fall for a guy who has a shady past and treats me as well as Samson does than fall for a guy who treats me like shit while looking good to the rest of the world. And it's such a big, important detail because it's true. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are very narcissistic, that want the world to believe that they are amazing, to have this mask on to everybody out in the world and want everybody to think that they're just this amazing person, and that behind closed doors they are not nice, they're not kind, they're not good people. Whereas, there's people that are complete gems that don't look good on paper, that aren't friends with everybody. They're their truth selves, and so, like, what you see is what you get, and so you can believe when they do say something, because they obviously, if they didn't like you or they weren't true people, they would tell you. They're honest. And Samson, even though she didn't know his full story up front, like, he doesn't look good on paper, but he does treat her amazing, and his actions show her that she is someone important in his life. So I love that line. That's such a good line. Like, Colleen Hoover, you need to stop being like a therapist in all your books. Oh, and this part was funny. I don't know if anybody, okay, on page 282, if anybody ever watched You, the TV series, they have like this meme that goes around Facebook. It's from You, and it says, it's a picture of Joe Goldberg, and it says that this is just true. Like, while stalking somebody, Joe, in his little stalking outfit, stalking people, can return a text back. Like, if a man wants you, he will come for you. And it's just so true, because, like, in this part too, Bea, Samson's in jail, and she doesn't know what's going on, but here he is. She's receiving a call from an inmate in the county jail. Press 1 to accept, or 2, and then she just immediately presses it to hear his voice. But I mean, it just shows that if someone cares about you, they will go to the end of it for you. You won't have to question how they feel about you. I mean, and that's true. Like, if a man wants to talk to you, he will talk to you. That's funny. Oh, and this, okay, on page 292, you start getting to see the poems from Rake, Samson's dad. And I'm like, here we are. I just did a book review not too long ago about, oh gosh, it wasn't Malibu Rising. It was a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. Oh my goodness. It's like literally Daisy Jones and the Six. Oh my gosh, such a good book. I don't even know where my mind went just now. But when she has all the songs at the back of the book, and here's Colleen Hoover pulling out, all these poems from Rake, Samson's dad, in the book. I'm like, stop being so talented and making us all look bad. Okay. Then you finally get to hear the truth on page 297. Okay, this part here, I made another note where I had to write a little box out to the side. Page 302. Bea says, this isn't fair to me. You expect me to just walk away and not have any contact with you at all. Why would you let me fall for you in the first place when you knew this was going to be the end result? It's like, why to any of it? And I'm curious that too. Like, Samson, if he knew, like, this was going to be the end, and he would always tell her that it wasn't going to work, and he would dismiss her like he did and force her to not stay behind, because he knew he was going to go to jail. He knew that he had a warrant out for his arrest. He knew that he'd be locked up for a while with all the charges against him. And so if he knew he'd be going away, it's like on his selfish part, yeah, him being selfish, he wanted to have her. But then, like, thinking of her, like, oh, she also said this part, people still drown in the shallow end. Like, that's so true, because they said they were going to keep it in the shallow end so they wouldn't get too invested. And so I think that was his way to have her without feeling guilty, like he's going to hurt her. Like, if she doesn't get too invested in him, he can't hurt her. But that quote is true. Bea says, "You're the one who said people still drown in the shallow end." She said, "I'm drowning, Samson, and you're the one holding me underwater." I'm like, this part made me so emotional. That was a lot. And it's true. People do drown in the shallow end. People get bitten by sharks in the shallow end. But it's like, why to any of it, Samson? I'm like, why? Because he couldn't help himself. That's why. And then there's another quote here, page 311. "The night I called you and asked if I could come here. She overdosed because she'd been an addict for as long as I can remember. I've had no one in my corner. Not you, not my mother, no one. I've been all alone my whole beep beep life. Samson is the first person who ever showed up and cheered for me." I'm like, when she's finally letting loose and letting her dad have it, this whole part, did that not like break you down a little bit? Just like having to read it and her telling her dad off and finally like just being so like done, like, I just don't care anymore. Here it is, like just letting him have it. I don't know. I got in my feelings on that part. And then of course, page 313, when she gets the final message from Samson. "My father once told me love is a lot like water. It can be calm, raging, threatening, soothing. Water will be many things, but even in all its forms, it will always be water. And Bea, you are my water. I think I might be yours too. If you're reading this, it means I've evaporated, but it doesn't mean you should evaporate too. Go flood the whole world." Beep beep world, Bea. And like, he could never live with himself if he held her back from going to college. And if you truly love someone, you let them go. And he did. He truly loved her, so he let her go. But then, in the end, she waited and she came back for him. And so I love the ending. I like how the first thing he said to her when he seen her outside that prison, when she was waiting for him after she went to college and did all the things she's supposed to do and things he wanted her to do, and she had her scholarship, and then she became a lawyer. Like, she's in school to be a lawyer. Like, you're so proud of her because she deserves that, especially with the life she's had. But then Samson, the first thing he did when he saw her, like, obviously he looked over there, so he obviously wanted to see her, was hoping that he'd see her, or he wouldn't look there in the first place. But he looked over to see if she was there, and then when he did, there she is waiting for him. And the first thing he says to her is, "Bea, did you go to college?" Like, and I feel like he just felt that immense relief when she said yes. He had the relief, so he couldn't, like, he didn't have to feel guilt, like thinking that she just, like, you know, skipped college and waited for him the whole time and put her life on pause. Like, he really cared about her, so he didn't want that for her. He wanted her to be happy, and he did the selfless thing and let her go. But then she came back, and it made him feel like, you dated other people, you did other things, you traveled, you did the things with your life that you could have, so I didn't hold you back. But then you still at the end choose me, so it made their love story even stronger. I'm like, it's too much, Colleen. It was too much, this book. You guys, did you guys have any other favorite parts? Were these your favorite parts, any of them? These are all my little tabbies. Now you know. They were the best parts in the book, and I could reread this. I hope that I forget about it in like 3 years and then reread it and like it's brand new, but I don't think that's gonna happen. I just hope it becomes a movie. Yes, so happy book review. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing some of my little post-it thoughts. If you did, I'll start doing more of them. Yes, so happy Nurses Week, happy Teacher Appreciation Week, and have a great day.